think we would all agree on that. So, that being said, I will open the floor to starting off with Cause. Post your first question and let the debating and discussions begin. And as always, guys, those of you in chat, if you want your question heard, please type it. Be mindful of what you say, and I will read it off to the gang.
All right. One of the things I wanted to ask was, how do we encourage people to form groups and to continue to make new groups? Because it's intimidating, especially when you've got people talking down to you. How can we encourage new and old players to keep forming new war bands and keep that kind of openness on the server?
Good question. Max, Karis, any of you guys got any thoughts on that front?
We'll gladly let Max go first.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, if we want more, are we talking more about like open RBR warbands or group, or like dungeons or scenario groups? Like, what is your main focus of the question, I suppose?
I would say probably more in the lakes. I feel that trade channels and, looking for group channels seem to suffice for the dungeon runs, at least so far as I know. But I have heard it mentioned a number of times, just like, oh, I wish there was more open warbands, which is understandable. Everybody gripes about it, but I'm wondering if there's any ways that we can encourage people to start warbands, including from people like myself. Like, it's like, oh, is there maybe some sort of incentive that we can give people to run warbands?
Yeah, so I mean, recently we added in the way that experience is shared between the group isn't just linearly cut between the 6 people, right? We added a kind of multiplier that, the more people you have, you get, instead of, say, whatever it is, 15% or something, whatever, I can't do the math in my head. Instead of getting, 16%, of the XP that you got, because it's split by the group, now you get an extra part of that. So being in a group is quite more effective than, playing in solo. I think it applies to Renown as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I mean, that was one thing that we did recently, and I think it's important. I think, when I log in of like an off time, first thing I do is check open parties and warbands. And I think there was Secrets was originally working on a little project for that to increase its sort of its functionality, which I think would be important. And I think for new players, like, if I look at it and I'm not sure if I'm welcome in one of these warbands or something, but one thing that I'd like to do personally is there's a party note, and if you put your mouse over one of these open parties or warbands, you can see the party note. And right now there is one on order that's got it set. It says they're doing the Vainglorious questline, but that's pretty hidden away. And having maybe something on the row that you can see when you fully open this window that says, we're new players welcome, or something like that. So you can, as a new player, that you're welcome to join this warband, because if you're a bit crap, which people might get kicked, or because they, if you're not rank 40, they'll kick you out and get someone rank 40 to come in when they're available. But if someone says new friendly casual warband, then it's a good place to start for a newer player, I think. But yeah, I mean, let's pass on to someone else for now.
Well, the auto band messages that you get, all the ones I always see, auto band looking for this, that, or the other thing, specifies 16 plus, which I think is a perfectly fine way to go about it. Somebody who just got into tier 4 and sees that message knows that they should be able, if there's a spot, they should be able to get into that warband. I've always thought that was a good thing. I have another comment about the first part of your question in trying to lure and maintain people into the game. And before I say what I'm about to say, I want to make clear to everybody I'm not trying to be self-serving. I don't mean this as shameless self-promotion, but it is true that I've been doing that since 2016. That's one of the primary motivators behind all these videos that I make, is to put it out there to the people that I can reach that this is a fun game. You can have fun with it. It is a good, overall a good community where you can come and just indulge yourself in the style of play that you want. And lately, the videos that I've been putting out have been more sort of group oriented, I suppose. Showing what happens, and when you get together with a group and you all have sort of the same common goal at that one particular moment. And I'll have another one out tomorrow about an event that happened last night when I was playing, which involved a group assault against one of the keeps. That was just a really good fight. So the message that I've always tried to promote by doing this is a fun game, and don't let what's the word? Don't let the naysayers, I guess that's a good one, yeah. Don't let them ruin it for you, right? And that was the second part of your question. So to address that real quick, yesterday in Realm Watch, which again, Max, I had a blast in Realm Watch yesterday. And I'm always appreciative of the fact I get to do that. So, but anyway, I had somebody in Realm Watch yesterday asked a question specifically about how, he brought up the fact that the toxicity that's associated sometimes with trying to lead a warband, and some of the comments that have been directed at him as a newer player, and all he's trying to do is just start up a warband and get something done. And I gotta admit, guys, on one hand, I know what he's saying is true. I know it happens. But what exactly to do about it, I don't know, other than just, persevere, just keep pushing forward. Other than that, I'm not sure.
Well, I would say one thing about it. Here's the thing that I take from all my years of MMOs, gaming in general. I understand a little bit of ribbing, a little bit of, horsing around, friendly banter. But of recent years, especially something I'm seeing rear its head in RoR, which is not needed because it's counterproductive, is this mindset of wanting to gatekeep people. You get new people that come in, such as the people that come in after the last big video that was done by that big YouTube streamer. We lost most of those people because some of the older vets in the community took the very negative mindset of, oh, I'm going to go beat these people down because I don't want them to be here. I don't want them to learn. And what I find hypocritical at best with this is some of these same people are the ones that are asking, well, how do we pull more people in the community? Well, try being positive. Get out there, help them run dungeons, help them learn their classes. I'm not saying hold their hands, but at least make it a friendly environment. If you're negative to the point that you slam the door in somebody's face, we're never going to grow the population. And on the front line of that is the streamers. I'm not saying, bow down to the streamers by no means. No. I'm saying things like the stream sniping and coming in people's chats with the constant negative comments. That does not help. That drives people away. And I know that people understand what we're discussing. This is a legitimate concern. I love Warhammer, always have, always will. I don't want to see it die. I want to see it grow. I want to see it nice and healthy and strong. So many people have put their hearts and souls into this game. Max and the other devs. everybody that has had a hand in this game and keeping this server alive has gone that extra mile. So, to address the toxic end of it, for those that we know are doing it, that are just blatantly obvious about it, my opinion of that would be to start making examples. Maybe step up the punishment of banning in those cases. That way it sends a signal to the newer players, hey, you know, these guys understand us. They're fighting to, protect the community, protect the game, pull people in. At the same time, it sends that message to those that are being the problem. Enough. Stop. And if you can't stop, go elsewhere.
I think, Toth, if I just may interject real quick.
Go ahead.
A good point that you brought up when we were discussing this is just that the dev team isn't like, a fully paid force. They're not paid at all, in fact. So, they don't have the numbers. They don't have a full GM team that's,
Very
constantly observing. But, I don't know, Max, between your experience on the dev team and everybody else's experience, years of experience here on the server, is there any way that the community and the devs can cooperate to not, I don't know about, well, some policing is obviously required, but is there a way that we can work together to make that a reality for the server? Because it's very niche, and it's a very awesome place. There's no other place like it.
Yeah, we've been obviously trying to not necessarily punish people for being, whatever you want to call it, better at the game and showing off, but trying to bring new community together and make them kind of grow up a bit together. That was a big motivation behind the starter guilds that we've got, so the Forces of Order and the Forces of Destruction. So when you reach level 5, you're in the starter guild, and there are a bunch of other people that are in these starter guilds together with you, and there's it's always active, and you can ask a question there, and everyone else there is a new character, and there's no way to get into it without creating a new character and getting level 5, unless you're already in a guild. So creating that community together, and maybe part of this is what I think we're going to try and push for the community managers to focus on is maybe even like having group maybe once a month there's a leveling group that go together, and we try and get as many people in together, new players, welcome them in and level together, create new community amongst the friends amongst those, to build these new relationships with other players who are maybe in the same boat. Because I think it's going to be difficult for a brand new player to the game, even PvP MMOs to kind of form relationships with the most experienced players, and they need to come up together to get onto that more equal level, or they can see them as peers in a way, right?
That's a good idea. I know Grezco and the CNTK guys, they do their weekly stuff, the public quests, and they try to pick up new players. He advertises it religiously, if you're looking to get gear and stuff. And I know I put word out about doing dungeons, public quests. So yeah, I'm all on board. I'll be happy to help support that. Anything that would reinforce positive growth and people working together.
To further encourage that, just quickly zipping back to the idea of incentives, so we get more people possibly on board with this idea. Is there anything you guys have already demonstrated with Twitch drops and events that that people could get certain little special rewards out of it? Is there a way that we could do that for people that are doing more of a mentorship role? I know that the game has advisor positions, and like you said, Max, the Forces of Order and Forces of Destruction are now back. Is there any ideas about how we could encourage, give them a carrot on a stick, essentially, for the veteran players to come back and be like, all right, well, this is how you do this is how you do that. Look out for this, look out for that. This is dangerous, that's not dangerous. And then give them, I don't know, like cape or something like that for help.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a good idea, but it's one of those things that's really hard to measure without someone judging it,
Of course.
subjectively. So I mean, we could, maybe it's difficult. We could give incentives to people to go back and do low level public quests and things like that, because obviously it debolsters in PvE areas in tier 1, so it's it's a bit more challenging than being level 40 and running around those.
True.
So we could do things like that, and I think that the advisor position, it's a great idea, but I don't really know if it's meant to do anything other than you tick yourself as advisor, and then you can be searched if you include advisors only. I'm not actually. I can't remember if it actually does anything more than that.
Are you talking about like in the same way if somebody was search to see if the game master is on, they could type in and see if an advisor is on, the same sort of function?
If you go to the social window now, you can probably do this on your character, and show everyone on the stream. There is the options tab at the bottom. There's the advisor section, and if you tick that, and then go back to the search option, you can tick include advisors only in the search. So you can.
Could we possibly roll that into the? Because we know that you guys have been working hard on the new player experience. Is there a way that we could somehow showcase that to newer players, or is it already showcased and I'm just not aware of it?
I don't think it's displayed anywhere else, or it's one of these features that it wasn't that used on live. Knowing that there's not written up descriptions of what exactly happens, and if you search advisor only, there's no indication of advisors in the search. Maybe there's meant to be. I'm not really sure. But it might be a good option to have that flag set in chat channels or something like that. So if if someone speaks in advice channel, you see a guy with a little icon next to his name when he types to know he's an advisor. So you can message him with all the questions you want if people want that. But being able to reward people for being nice is difficult, because we don't
Yeah, I
have
agree.
AI that reads chat messages to work out whether that was a good conversation
Yeah.
or a bad conversation.
Yep.
Maybe we'll get there one day, but that's.
I do like the idea of possibly putting the advisor to where it shows up in the chat channel, so it stands out a little more, so newer people coming in, they can see it and be like, hey, this person's willing to help, so I'll ask them. Because there's a lot of times I'm perusing through chat, and I'll watch for people asking questions, and I'll send them a direct DM because chat goes by so fast. But yeah, definitely having a little bit more visible probably would at least be a step in the right direction of saying, hey guys, there are people out there willing to help.
Yeah, I think there's some really constructive solutions in there, and yeah, even if it's not like an actual hard reward, just anything to let newer folks know that there are members of the community who are here to help, and you don't necessarily need to go on some giant quest to go find the game masters and stuff like that, because you guys are busy enough as it is. So any way the community can help grow the server that we all desire to benefit from.
And
That would.
hold 1 second, Karis. And just so you
Okay.
guys know, we are joined by an additional guest. Mr. Dalen off the dev team is also in the house. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome in,
Thank you.
Dalen.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Karis.
I was just going to say that when it came to being an advisor in that capacity, I would be perfectly willing, to join a program like that. my only stipulation would be if like being like when I do Realm Watch, I have to type in I .gm, or otherwise I show up as a GM. That was, I wasn't aware of that at first, but it was made aware of it as time goes on. So I do that now. I type in dot or block or whatever it is, dot hide. That's it. So that nobody sees me as a GM. All right. If I was an advisor, all I would want is, okay, I could be an advisor for say an hour and a half while I'm playing, and then I can turn it off and nobody can see me, so that I can just play the game.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. Well,
to have that.
the option is in the social window option, so you can turn it off at your own free will at any time.
Okay. All right.
Um,
That would be
so
yeah.
I think we just need to
I'd
make
be
it
on
more
board with
visible
that.
to people, so you can see who's an advisor in chat channels and or other sort of things. I think would be good. But
I'd be down with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I don't
that would
mind. I don't mind. I don't mind talking to people.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just laughing.
I was gonna say that, yeah, I mean, like, at least with the system that already exists now, like Matt was saying earlier, you can just go in and toggle it on your character, but, I mean, as we've all kind of concluded, having it more visible to the other end of the spectrum, because the advisors can find that, but, the newer players aren't going to know to go and look for that, so if they're able to just go, oh, I click this, then, or right when they make their character, it's like, hey, if you have any questions, there's a advice channel, and look for advisors. If you need help, type .gm or with this, that, or the other thing.
Fair point. Fair point. I do have a slight thing to mention in on this, because this has been something that I know I've spoken to you before about, Max. Is there any chance in the future that we could possibly see an account-wide friends list?
Yep, that is a requested feature, and I think it's something we are considering. So we'd probably merge all the friends lists, have a destruction one and thingy, but we need to discuss that more internally. I think it was kind of pitched as, you having order characters will have the same friends, and destruction characters will have the same friends.
Well, I got you. I didn't know if there was any hope or prayer of maybe one day ever seeing something like that, because I know a lot of us are like, we can't tell when our friends are on unless we tune hop to see who's on what list.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's just something that we'd need to get around to doing.
I got you.
I mean, with that though, there's like, I guess there's like two different options how to implement it. Like either, it should be account wide in your account, but should it also be kind of like account wide to the target player's account? So if you friend one of their characters, you're friends with all their characters on that account.
I think that's a bit more difficult to do in the client UI, but and you may not want someone to add you as a friend and then see all your characters.
No, I mean that would be a little bit more controversial, I guess.
Yeah. So I think the safest option would be something like your list is still two other players' characters, but it's your list across every account.
Yeah, that I like, because it shouldn't be, just have one person, you can see everything they got. Let people have some anonymity. I was just curious if that was ever going to be a thought or be attempted, because I know with all the things you guys work on, there's like a slew of things in front of that. So I was curious, but I do think, a lot of good ideas have been mentioned so far as ways to do things. And again, guys, as Max pointed out, there's the advisor roles in there right now. You just have to manually turn it on and off. But avail yourselves of the avenues of being able to help one another. Again, the whole point for all of us is we enjoy playing the game and we want to see it grow. So with that in mind, that's the direction we need to push. The streamers, everybody, and try and work together. Otherwise, we're essentially spinning our wheels and not getting anywhere. Which now brings me to Mr. Dalen. Would you like to add anything else on the current topic before I let the next person pose their question?
No, not really. Like so, I mean, lately I haven't been working much on
I get you.
I mean, especially like new player experience stuff and so on.
I get you.
I've been quite deep into the ability system, really.
I
So
got
that's
you.
mostly what's on my mind.
Oh, no worries. I mean,
Sure.
everything you guys do is always appreciated. I like to have it, that way everybody has a chance to have their voice heard or throw an idea out there, something they'd like to see or a question they'd like to ask. But, yeah, you definitely a good question there, Cause. Some valid discussions and ideas put forward, suggestions and ways to go about things. It's on us, guys. It's on the community to make it happen. Which brings me to the next person. Mr. Max, would you care to pose a question or a thought, or is there a topic you would like to bring to the table?
Let me think of something, and you can always loop back.
Will
I mean,
do.
I think we can go through like your guys' sort of questions and then move on to I'm sure we can provide little updates on certain things that they get asked and things like that. So
Alright, not a problem. I just wanted to ask. Karis, fire away, my friend.
Yeah, I would like to know, please, when are we going to get actual flying dragon mounts?
Oh, God.
No, I'm kidding.
And a thunder barge while we're at it.
Yeah, that too.
I mean,
Funny,
this is
guys.
it's a bit of a fun question, right? I mean, we can explain like why that really isn't really feasible.
Go ahead.
Really interest like if you look at any, and I'm sure you've seen it on Realm Watch, if you look at any zone from above standing position, you'll see that some buildings are just facades. You know, there's no roof on them, and there's no collision on the roof and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a big problem that Blizzard had with World of Warcraft. I think when they announced Burning Crusade, it was going to have flying mounts everywhere in the world, and then they kind of cut that bit and pushed it back because they had to rebuild the whole world and put proper roofs on all the buildings and fix everything. All the inaccessible areas could no longer just be weird areas. So it'd take a lot of work, and I don't know how that would work with RBI. Just have people fly in and attack you and then fly off. It'd be interesting.
That'd be terrifying.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was just kind of goofing off, but the actual question I guess I was going to pose is, I am curious, and this may sound silly, and this time I'm not trying to be, but I am curious about a specific ability, and I've talked about this on my own stream from time to time, and that you take a class like Sork, Magus, I think Shammy has one, maybe a Bright Wizard. I've never played a Bright Wizard to any degree. But they all have disarms. And as a longtime sword master player, I've always been curious as to why, what the actual reasoning is as to why someone called a sword master would not have a disarm. Because you would think when these guys went to sword master school and the instructors told them, okay, we're going to teach you everything about how to be a sword master, except how to disarm your opponent. We're going to leave that to the source with their little wooden sticks. I'm being a bit facetious, but I am just generally curious if there is a lore aspect to it, or just what the reasoning might be that somebody with a title like Sword Master would not have a functional disarm. I'm just curious.
I mean, I don't remember the lore off the top of my head. We'd have to ask. We have some people who are very versed on the lore of the game, and really, I guess Mythic, right? They made the original decisions, and the original class sort of philosophies, and ask them. why Swordmaster School doesn't teach a disarm.
Well, I remember on this server when Marauders were given a disarm. Because I used to, back in the day, there used to be a Marauder on the server named Norcali. I think a lot of people probably remember Norcali, but we had kind of an in-game rivalry. We used to fight each other all the time. And I remember running into him 1v1 once in Reichland. And he won that fight because he had just been given a disarm, and at a crucial moment he disarmed me. And back then we still had cross-realm chat, right? So after the fight, he was actually talking to me, and he told me how he did it, that he'd been given a disarm. So was that something that Marauders had in the Age of Reckoning version that was just added here later? Do you guys remember, or was it something new that was decided to give Marauders at a particular time? I'm not making a big deal about this. Like I said, this is all just curiosity is motivating my question is all.
You must be talking about 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was about 5 years ago. Yeah, exactly. Norcali's been gone for...
He pops up now and again. I've seen him around, but yeah, I honestly can't remember that far back because I wasn't doing abilities right now. But Dalen might be able to. He knows more currently a lot about the original 148 patch, so the last Mythic patch, and what that had. So maybe he could explain more.
I mean, so we. I mean, currently the balancing is a little bit on hold, waiting for the new ability system to be ready. So we're probably not gonna like add disarm abilities, stuff like that, until after that's been released and so on. I like on some abilities you can like I've been digging around a lot in the like ability data that's from various client files and so on. And on some abilities you can see kind of like remnants of disabled parts where like I mean sometimes I guess Mythic changed their mind on some ability design, and then instead of just removing some parts they just like disable them basically. So in some cases you can kind of see these like remnants lying around. But I mean off the top of my head I can't remember seeing any like disarm on Swordmaster.
I got you.
Lying
So
around.
basically, things that they may have had implemented one time, and they shut it off, didn't take it out, and it's still hanging around somewhere.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of those disabled things, I guess, are mostly the tactics and morals.
Yeah.
But some of those tactics have, an ability altering effect. So I mean, as an example, there's like a couple of disabled Swordmaster tactics. One that would make quick incision reduce the run speed of the target even more than it does.
Yeah.
Like be a stronger snare. One that makes the taunt and challenge on the Swordmaster do an intelligence debuff. There's like so there's a couple of things like that, and I mean some of those ones I mean maybe we could bring back if they're like reasonably balanced. I think I mean some of those ones I think Mythic disabled them for a good reason because they weren't really that balanced, or
I wouldn't mind trying it.
either like way too good or way too bad.
Yeah, they were overtuned.
I mean, especially
overtuned. They just weren't working at all.
Yeah, I mean, especially with tactics. I mean, as you're limited to 4 slots, I mean, there's not really much point currently to like bringing in a tactic that no one would really slot anyway.
Yeah. I'd be all for it. I'd say at some point down the road, if it ever gets a chance to, I'd say give it a try. If there's any that might be balanced enough that could make a comeback, if not, no worries. Could try it on a very limited basis.
I would say though that on the Swordmaster, like what I would most like to see is some sort of single target punt in a two-hand spec. Introduced in some way that makes it balanced, but I think that in at least in smaller scale fighting, having a knockback is just necessary for any tank to be able to hunt away enemy guards, so you can DPS the target without guard.
Because
the Swordmaster not being able to participate in that hunt game.
And again, none of this is, my questions here. None of this are deal breakers or anything. These are just curiosity questions in playing the game, because they kind of make sense to me. And you just hit another one. The Swordmaster sort of AOE knockback. In the evolution of playing a Swordmaster, most people are told, don't use that, because all it does is give your enemy an immunity, right? Now there are certain times that it's useful. Most of the time, it isn't. But it just seems logical to me, like you were saying, that for a Swordmaster to have a single target punt like that would make sense, I guess, right? It would make sense. Now, everybody has to understand that, I'm not a coder. I never have been. That wasn't my chosen field when I was growing up. So I have to make my comments and ask my questions based on the baseline that, if you were going to make a single target punt for a Swordmaster, I don't know what's involved in making that happen, but I just think it makes sense. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it would. It would definitely pay to see the Swordmaster with that ability, because, as Dalen pointed out, the tank is your front line defense in any situation, offensively or defensively. So, that definitely would be something to see on that way. It evens it out and makes them a little bit more viable and can keep them in the fight, and it not dump all the stress of having to do certain key functions on one or two classes. So I agree with that. It'd be a solid thing to see in there now. And again, as long as it's balanced, I got no problem with it. Same as any other ability. I mean, you guys often hear me discuss the issue with the stealth aspect from Witch Elves and Witch Hunters. I don't have a problem with the fact that they have a stealth. I just dislike the fact that if you're in the middle of a heated fight, like you're literally on top of each other fighting, and they can just vanish and there's nothing you can do to knock them out of it. That's the one aspect I don't like about it. And it's just simply because of the fact they can dart out and they can avoid AoE and regen and then jump back in.
It's not true that you can't disrupt it. I mean, if you're using the 2-second ability, off the top of my head, I can't remember what his name right now, but when you hit you're invisible for only 2 seconds. Well, you're invisible for only 2 seconds, and you get the speed boost. But if a Witch Elf is just going into stealth, right, you can't disrupt that, absolutely.
I've tried.
It happens quite often.
I've tried, and people have seen me do it on my stream trying to interrupt, even with AoE, and nothing. It doesn't stop them. So
yeah, the 2-second cast ability, like Shadow Prowler and
that's it. Yeah,
Incognito. Is it called? Well, anyway, I mean, those ones have 100% chance to be interrupted when you're hit when you're casting them. So during the 2-second cast, if you just any hit on them, it's gonna interrupt it. Then once they've stealthed, then you have to spot them to be able to get them out of stealth. First spot them and then hit them.
I guess I'm just not having any luck with it, because I know when I see them go to stealth and I try to lay down an AoE or anything to keep them from doing it, target them and hit them, it's like they just vanish anyway, and I'm like, okay.
Well, sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes you can hit a witch elf or a witch hunter who's going into stealth, and they'll stealth anyway. It isn't automatic, that you break it, but it can most definitely be disrupted. People throw axes at me all the fracking time,
At least that's good to know, because honestly I was starting to think that you couldn't, because every time I tried.
But Dalen, you reminded me of another question. And again, the curiosity, the 30-second timer that shows up, like when a witch elf goes into stealth, it starts another 30-second timer before you can come out of stealth. Is that intentional, or?
So I think that is a bug which is fixed in the new ability system. I did actually test that recently.
Okay.
It is fixed in the system.
It's meant to turn on the cooldown when you exit stealth. So that there's supposed to be a 30-second cooldown before you can enter stealth again.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I would say though with this like 2-second stealth and sprint ability, that I mean most likely we're gonna add like a make it similar to charge so that it breaks if you cast an ability. So then if you start using your stealth ability, it would break the speed increase. And I would say
But it already did that.
No. So, but unlike regular charge abilities, that one always stays you get the speed increase for the 7 seconds, regardless if you're casting abilities. And yeah, that should probably be similar to all other charge abilities, but speed increasers. I mean, I would probably say the same for the runaway ability on the squig herder, that it should probably also break when casting an ability.
I appreciate that, because I was operating under the assumption that, like, I remember once I was on my witch elf, I hit the second burst, Elixir of Shadows, and as I was running away, I hit a health potion, and as I remember, I immediately slowed down. So that's where I got the idea that if you do anything during that 7-second window, that it will break your speed bonus. But
currently, it shouldn't break the speed bonus, but yeah, I mean, I think that it probably should, just like any other charge ability on the other melody DPS.
Right, that makes sense.
But that's, one of those balancing things that will probably have to wait until after the ability system is done.
Hey Toth, what's next?
Well, want to welcome in Rubius to the chat. Thank you for joining, Rubius.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be here.
Newest member in the grand scheme of things to the dev team, and somebody that I have been working with off and on doing the wiki stuff. So big thanks and shout out to you for putting in the time and effort on the wiki. And welcome into the discussion.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having us all.
Oh, I'm always happy to have people in to discuss valid topics and points of view and discuss ideas. But anything you'd like to discuss or bring to the table as far as like class ideas, maybe some little tweak suggestion ideas, or ways to help improve community growth and positivity, pulling people in?
Okay, the latter part, sure. I got here just in time to hear you all talking about Swordmaster, and that's my first main. I was very happy to hear. I think it was Karasana where you talking about a single target punt, and I was drooling like, oh, I wish Swordmaster. Oh, that'd be so good. I was very excited for that. Would love to see that. So I think the thing though that I would talk about the most is like community stuff. I think is really awesome to talk about, and like things that we can do for newer players, things that we worked on a lot for newer players actually over the last 3 to 4 months. Lots of new quests are in the game, lots of new tutorial stuff is in the game. That's the kind of stuff that I love talking about and brainstorming. What can we do for newer players? It's not always easy to make or possible, but things that bring more people to Return of Reckoning and help them stay in the game, I think is awesome. So if there's any things that people have seen or want to see, sure. I think it's a fun topic to run through.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of good ways to improve positive growth in the community. And I know me and you've talked about this many times in the past, Rubius, is with the start of working on the quest guides, it's helped to make people get out there, start doing guides, redoing things, bringing information to the table, which is helping out. I get a lot of feedback from newer players like, dude, these guides are helping. And I'm not just saying that for the quest guides of the city. I'm saying the guides in general. Whoever does what guides, like class guides, professions, all of it. It's definitely gotten some positive feedback, and a lot of the newer players have been very grateful and have expressed that, because I've been told to pass on a thank you to Rubius and the guys doing this work on the wiki. I've been told to relay thank you to the devs for the work they do, and and people do understand the stress of what you guys deal with, and you're not paid to do this.
You're volunteers.
Yeah, it's a passion project. You're doing it when you have your free time. You all have lives to deal with and so forth. So I do want to put that out there, that there are people in the community that are mindful of it, and we appreciate what's been done.
Well, absolutely.
So, and I try to build on that, is what I try to do with my channel. But I'm only one person.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great, and even one person can help a lot, and if you can introduce others that might want to help too, I think that takes it a step further, and you may not even realize the ways that you are introducing people to help with the wiki or to help with guides, stuff like that. That's probably the thing that I would say we could definitely use the help of the community on even further. The wiki has been updated pretty significantly over the last like 6 months, but we still have so much further to go with it. And so we would love if people want to help with the wiki or want to like improve things on the wiki, you are more than welcome. I will teach you, quite frankly. I will sit aside with you for like 30 minutes and just teach you how to do it, because I didn't know anything about wiki editing when I started last year. Like I knew nothing, and I just kind of taught myself how to just code it because the visual editor wasn't working. So just, all right, what's the code for this? It's very basic stuff. It's really easy to learn, and if you have the knowledge,
that visual editor now, so it does.
And yes, and Max fixed it, so it's even easier now. But we would love for more knowledgeable people, or even for newer people that want to just like, oh, this was tough for me, I figured it out. Let me go put a note here on the wiki, that might help somebody else when they're new later. That kind of stuff is awesome. You don't have to be a veteran. You can be new, anywhere in between. We would love that stuff for the wiki, and again, I will personally teach people if you're interested.
Appreciate it, Rubius. Definitely, guys, you heard it live from the horse's mouth, so to speak. The offer's there. Again, the community has to step up and make use of those avenues. And I have a question in chat. Let's see, on the most important topic, fancy hats. Is there any potential for introducing the ability to purchase gold crests, etc., the appearance of an item when you have the ward for that level? If I have the invader set, I could buy an appearance item that looks like the PvE set of the same level, etc.
I mean, it's one of those things we don't want to necessarily just say, okay, if you just complete one arm of the game, you can have everything, right? Because it just reduces the amount of game there is to play for everyone. But I mean, we are looking at new cosmetics and things. So we've got one thing we were trying to get in for Christmas was to give everyone a Santa hat. But we just didn't have time for that. But we were adding new cosmetics, so maybe we don't give out the exact one that you get for doing PvE, but we're looking at either retexturing existing like armor sets and things, so we can have you can do a lot of changes just retexturing, and so just having more variants that we could give away. So if you want the specific version that you get from PvE, you might have to do the PvE route. But if there's still going to be, we want to expand as much cosmetics you can get, because there's so much cool armor sets we can make, and variants, designs, and everything. And we've got more in the works, and we're recruiting artists if you like armor texturing.
Definitely. That's something I actually was talking about in my stream the other day, is because I was commenting about the different chaos gods and the armors. I don't so much care to get something with stats on it, but something that cosmetically looks like the particular god you owe fealty to is a big plus, at least in my book. Don't know about the rest of you in chat.
Do we have another question running right now?
Not at the moment. I was going to open the floor to chat. If any of you guys...
Well,
hold up before you
yeah.
say anything.
Okay.
Any of you in chat that would like to post a valid question for any of us or all of us to answer, please, guys, please ask your questions. Just make sure that it's a legit question, not something frivolous. But other than that, the floor is open, and I do encourage you guys, share your thoughts, share your ideas.
I was looking at yesterday's Realm Watch stream, and I did kind of, when I'm not going to mention this guy's name who posted the questions in the chat, but I did mention on the stream to him that I would bring it up today, because Realm Watch was not the format to really discuss what he was talking about, but this podcast is, and especially since we have some of the power players here, I'm just going to read what he put in the chat, and for everybody listening, I'll put the caveat on it that I am not trying to be negative or demeaning to anybody on the server. I'm just going to read what he said, and then people can comment as they will. So his first question was, do you try to lead a war band? He says, the times I have played and taken the initiative to lead, the group chat gets full of people typing in caps demanding a 2-2-2 format when there isn't even enough each class to do so. Along with people bashing players who use add-ons to reduce the intensity of having to organize mid-fights. And then finally, I have seen entire war bands turn on the leader, himself included, and start trash-talking one person as a mob. And his final comment was, not a good community. That's the sentiment out there of at least this guy. And what do we say to him, basically?
I can tackle this one.
Go ahead, Rubius.
So to answer this guy's first question, like, do you lead war bands? Yes, and like almost every other night or every other day. And sometimes those are pug bands. Historically, like for many years, I've done pug bands. And the first thing I will say is, like, it's hard. It's really hard to lead a pug warband. So, like, shout out to this guy that was trying to do it. It sounds like this person's had a little bit of a challenge in doing it, and that is totally normal. Don't let that kind of like hit you in the wrong way. There's even a loading screen tip that says that leading a pug band is hard, and even if you fail once, don't give up. I would support that. And I think this really comes down to the community perception of stuff like autoband is probably the add-on that is being referred to here, and the way that people set that up. So I think if you're using autoband to do things like manage your warband to a 222, almost nobody's going to get too angry about that. I have seen people get angry when people set it to like only level 40s, because our experience for endgame at this point, or almost endgame, is 16 to 40 plus, right? Everyone plays together when you hit tier 2. And people that kind of get to 16 and join a warband and get immediately kicked out, it's not a great feeling, right? Because they get auto-kicked because they're not level 40 yet. So I think there is some fair criticism from the community about that sometimes. But that again is up to the warband leader. So I would say don't let, if it's tough, don't let it get to you, and listen to what the community is saying. Sometimes you can find something in there that is worth listening to, and sometimes you're just going to find haters. And if you find haters, don't worry about it. Do your thing and just keep going on. You'll find people that are like-minded. You'll eventually break through that. So I wouldn't stress it. You know, most of the community is actually very nice and very helpful from what I've seen, especially like during the NA times when it's low pop. A lot of very helpful people there. Okay,
Yeah,
that's just my 2 cents. Yeah.
We also added that we fixed warband assistance. So if you are running a warband, you can always have a friend or someone do the group organization for you, and you can focus on leading, and you can set an assistant now, and it actually works. And they can do the group lining up. So hopefully that, you know, if you haven't installed autoband, it's not the end of the world. You can set an assistant.
Yeah, that's something me and Sproximus used to do, because when I would lead Pug Warbands, he would act as my assistant. I'm like, okay, I'm, calling out shots and stuff, but I need an extra set of eyes to help manage things, delegate some, and that worked out really well for us. So, yeah, that's definitely a plus.
True.
And I'd like to bring this up because Storm did put this in the chat. GM should have effect state and model control for community engagement. Storm, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Storm's he's one of our GMs, and he's
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to play with some toys.
Gotcha.
On lightning flying from his eyes.
Exactly.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Do the Norse thing, when the GM appears, that you could have fun with it as long as you don't abuse it. But you could have fun with it. A little bit of RP never hurts.
That was always a charm about Blizzard's GMs. Have we covered the topic at hand? Or...
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the biggest thing coming into it, and I wanted to bring this up because I kept getting asked this by by a lot of my community and a lot of random people, is to have a legitimate podcast discussion on ways to positively improve the community, to get it out there. And they wanted their questions and their ideas put forward. And the main thing that I kept hearing was like, they wanted to hear the human side of it and know that, hey, the devs are there, they understand, they're trying. And Max and Dalen and Rubius coming in and talking with us today is to help reinforce that, hey, they're in it with us together. We're not alone. We're all trying to achieve the same thing, which is to get the community to grow. We want people to come in and have fun. Hey, this is RoR. It's been going for years. Let's keep it going. Keep the party going.
In that same vein, with the ability to, because there's no other way to log into the game unless you go through the launcher, right? Is there a way you could possibly promote the Realm Watches or the podcasts for those kinds of discussions, just so that it's front center for players, whether they're new or old, that they can kind of go listen in on that stuff and hear that feedback from the developers or members of the community with greater reach and make their voices heard.
That would go ahead.
I wonder about that too, because just to add on a little bit to the question, I have noticed that lately, not just with the Realm Watch stream, but my stream and every other Warhammer streamer that I watch, including Toth, the numbers do seem, the overall numbers of people watching does tend to be down. And I've been kind of curious, or I am curious, I should say, as what people may think might account for that as well. But please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking to do some more Twitch drops again and have a more regular schedule for it and be a bit less intense and spread over a bit, so it can cater for more players as opposed to just a bit less brutal on people. And having something like, it's good to have these community things, although it becomes a bit of a line between who we promote and who we don't promote.
Yeah.
It's a fair point.
That becomes the line.
Yeah, it's a
Very
fair point.
understandable.
And we could add something to the launcher to have sort of things, and we could organize that with the community managers and things like that. Like we have a channel for community events, things like that, and we have the social channel video to Carol Discord and Discord content creators. So maybe it's we can look at the launcher. Could probably do with an update, be a bit bigger now that people have bigger screens, and maybe have some videos and stuff. Possibly, or we can look into that.
I do what I just to put this out here, because I know I've gotten a couple of questions about this in DMs. I'm not doing this to just specifically benefit my channel, guys. The RoR podcast, it ain't about me. I started it solely to benefit the community. So to me, if Max and the devs would say, hey, could we get somebody else to host it, or somebody else wanted to step up and host it, that's fine. It ain't about me. And I've repeatedly said this. I want this community to grow. I'm an old tabletop Warhammer player. I played Warhammer 40k. I played Warhammer Fantasy. I want to see this game stay around for years to come. So
Me too.
That being said, my drive is to make that happen. So
I say the same thing about Realm Watch. Sorry, guys, but I say the same thing about Realm Watch. And I admit, I'm only human. I know it's a big admission, but, really, I'm only human. And every now and then I get a little frustrated because I'm always making the point that Realm Watch isn't about me either. Realm Watch is about the server, the game, the community, all that stuff. And I think, again, going back to the very first question that was asked in the podcast about the toxicity level that can sometimes creep up on this server, I truly think there are some people who don't watch Realm Watch or who don't listen to the podcast simply because of who's on it. And that's a barrier I wish we could get through.
I mean, unfortunately, you can't change people's behaviors, but you can offer incentives to people who are wanting to participate. And who knows, that may influence those individuals who aren't looking to be a part of the discussion. If maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe I can get an answer.
Here's the thing on that, and I'm just want to put this out here, because as much as Max and Dalen and all the others that put their time and effort in, and they're doing it out of a labor of love, this is, again, a passion project. If you want to help, then do so. But if you truly understand the concept of service as its own reward, you don't need an incentive. You do it because you want to, because you know it'll help, whether you get a thank you out of it or not. It's about helping to make something happen, to help something be improved that we want to see stay around. So that's what I have to say there. There's at no time does there ever need to be an incentive to encourage people to help. You either want to help or you don't. But on the same end of that, if you don't want to help, that's fine. But don't sit there and do something destructive just because, well, if I can't have it, nobody will. It's not needed. We want to have a good time here. Warhammer is Return of Reckoning is a wonderful game. I've had fun with it for 3+ years. And there's a lot of people that do enjoy it. Max and the rest of them have helped to continue it. They've picked up the torch when others, either couldn't or no longer could carry it, and have kept that dream going. So if anything, pull together, be counted for something. Let's continue it. Let's continue the work.
But in regards to numbers, I guess like player numbers at least, I think. I mean, there's a lot of players that play for gearing up. Of course, that's like a big motivation for a lot of players.
Oh, yeah.
And since we released City Sieges, we haven't really released a whole lot of gear. I mean, there's been like ranked gear, but technically that's like at a lower level than Sovereign, and so on. And like, yeah, but overall, like, not a whole lot of gear has been released in the last couple of years. So, I mean, I think that has an impact on like player numbers and so on. And if we, would release another set of like even better gear, then a lot of people would come back and try to grind that and so on.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also the risk of like,
the power disparity.
You get like big power gap, creep, and so on, and then you have to do kind of stuff like World of Warcraft has done with like stat compression and just compress them down again, so you don't get this big difference. And I mean, there's also like Sovereign is kind of supposed to be the end here, so I mean, I think maybe we can do more horizontal progression, but we also have to look into like other ways of, other ways of like motivating people and so on. And we've done some stuff. Like, I mean, Killboard, for example, was really like an attempt at like some other reason to fight than just gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's more that could be done, and also more that ties into the guilds and so on that are, I mean, the old guild rank system and so on is very basic at the moment.
Yeah, and if we add a new gear set, it's a problem with MMOs. They're meant to be games that last forever, but you can't just keep piling new gear on top of new gear.
Yeah. At some point, it has to be enough.
But it's like Dalen said with horizontal progression. I think that's what a lot of the non-MMO games have gone with. If you look at like, I'm going to pull out Fortnite because there's a lot of cosmetics and other stuff that doesn't necessarily affect your level, but it's stuff that you can get right by doing something. So it doesn't make you better, but you could get a new colored of gears, bragging rights. Basically, stuff you can wear and other people can see you, and that's why we're trying to get some more artists so we can kind of pump more of that out. We're trying to we kind of we had a sort of a step back and be like, it's not sustainable to just keep adding gear sets on. The gear gap gets bigger and it becomes more and more of a problem. But we need motivate people to play, have stuff to work towards. And it's not necessarily like the game should be fun. You shouldn't need the rewards, but it's kind of like something to work towards. It's always fun to do that, right? You achieve something, and we had content coming out, like the Dwarf and Greenskin Cities was like a lot of work. It was a lot of people spent numbers of hours working on it. I think to the point where it was what was the last few weeks, it was like 3-4 hours of sleep, wake up, work on it again for 18 hours.
I remember those times.
To make that release date, because we set the release date in advance of Warhammer's birthday. But and so we're kind of in the last few years since then kind of been investing in tools, and we've got some really cool tools that are starting to be used. So people like Rubius can he can easily make new stuff and work with that, and new art pipelines and tools, so we can get new art in the game. Like we released the bear saddle. That was our first sort of a certain type of model where we added the saddle to the bear and fixed the bear up using a little art tools, and making those better so we can add new things. I think for the Pie Week we added the baker's hat, which only a few people got, but it was our first new hat that went into the game. And we've got a pipeline now that should make making new hats quite easy. So that's why we had the Christmas hat suggestion. And we can build up on those. We've got those tools, we've got those workflows now, so we can get new hats into the game quite easily. We have a set process set out for that. Maybe we can. Armor's a bit difficult because we need so many pieces of armor set for we need 24 shoulders. It's a lot of work. And we're just trying to build those processes up so we can produce content. We're working on a map editor that lets us build terrain, so we can explore that option. And yeah, we got to think about the future. The new ability system was part of that. It was so time consuming to do it. The new ability system simplifies that process a lot more and lets any of our team work on those and add new features. And just we had to reduce the technical debt and get into a place where we can actually work on the game and look towards the future.
I got you. Well, it's a valid point, and I appreciate you explaining it.
Agreed.
I do.
Check one too.
I get what you're saying. As far as with the discordant, and I've seen that. Ultimately, I mean, I'm not trying to ignore what you're saying, but ultimately, when it comes to being a fresh 40 and you go into discordant, you're gonna run into people that queue up at the same time. And I know there are some people that do abuse the system. In those cases, the easiest thing to do, screenshot it, document it. If you're seeing them in the same thing over and over again, make sure you got it screenshot. Get a shot of the kill board too, and turn it in. That way it gives the GM something to go to bat with to try and break these people of doing it. But as far as addressing putting it, I don't think there's going to be any way to really correct that short of people just taking the time to go in and put in the reports so that it gives the GM something to go to bat with.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have people try to do it. Well, you can't.
I got a comment about the gear. If I may.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. Okay.
I get it. They're entitled to go after renown. I mean, there's nothing you can't. At the moment, the community is not strong enough to support splitting it to where you relegate the top end RR people to one aspect and then everybody else to another. It's not feasible. It's not feasible, at least that I know of. Unless you care to, or Dalen care to comment on that, because you may even be able to illuminate it more.
So there's the scenario system, and the way it was implemented, 8 years ago or something, is quite. It only lets us do things in a certain way, and it could be optimized. And they're working on a rewrite at the moment. At the moment, the ability system's kind of taking a bit of a more front step because we just want to get it out the door. But kind of. We can do matchmaking a lot better, and that's something we're looking to do. It's not to get it right. It's not going to be a quick fix, but there are some quick fixes we are considering. I think someone pitched the idea of make Discord and Skirmish only curable by solos and not duos, and that reduces the chance of getting pre-mades a bit more, and things like that. Because in future we could start to track things like have I recently played with on the same team as these players, and kind of prioritize that matching a bit less, so it happens less likely unless it's very necessary. And there's lots of things we can consider. and working on the rules. And, if you've got a low level, a recent 40, a fresh 40, we can not necessarily put them with high end 40s. You could maybe still keep them in that lower bracket a bit longer, if there is enough high people in that lower bracket, and it would probably be a better game for that player and everyone else involved if that match had happened instead of him going into the big boys game. So I mean, should we ask everyone else their thoughts on it?
Yeah, would love to hear the rest of you. Karis, go ahead and say what you're going to say, but yeah, I would like to hear some more thoughts on what Max just put forward.
Well, Matt, I will circle back to Max's comment. The first point I was going to make about the gear is, again, as a long-term player on the server, I remember when Conqueror gear first came out and how hard it was to get. And over time, it has grown to the point where people coming out of, say, the Tier 2, Tier 3 realm in scenarios and that, the gear has been streamlined. The gear progression has been streamlined. It's one of the things in the game, one of the aspects of the server that I believe has been brilliantly done. In that when you level a character now, you can be in competitive gear. Not the type in, the Sovereign Warlord, all that's still hard to get, and it should be, right? It should be the hardest to get. But the Annihilator, the Conqueror, the Oppressor, those sets do not take anywhere near as long as they once did. And so if there are new players listening, or if new players hear this or something, my gear advice is just don't be discouraged, because you can get in competitive sets now fairly quickly. And and if you're going to go out and run the war bands in Tier 4, you have a level of survivability and all that isn't that hard to come by as it once was. And I see that as, like I said, I see that as a positive thing. The other point that Max brought up just a moment ago about keeping, say, a brand new 40 in the lower tier scenarios for a little bit longer, I think that is a good idea as well. Perhaps worth looking into, and maybe base that on, okay, we're going to keep them in there until, maybe base it off renown, or base it off the gear set they're in. Once they transfer to, I don't know, what comes after Oppressor? Somebody remind me.
Vank Oppressor would be Invader.
Vank, yeah, okay, yeah. Once you hit a Vank piece, then you go out into the cold, cruel world, against all us plus 80 guys. I mean, I think I think, Max, that was a very good idea that you brought up, that worth looking into, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Karis, didn't you say you were going to circle around to the...
I did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't make that clear, I guess. But yeah, the point I circled around to is what Max said a moment ago about perhaps keeping people in the tier 2, 3 scenario bracket for a little bit longer.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Rubius, any thoughts on that idea? Or Dalen?
So, yeah, I'll jump in real quick, I guess. I also agree with kind of that sentiment that Max has mentioned and that was mentioned in the chat. Fresh 40 is tough right now. Like, Fresh 40 is the weakest you will probably ever be in the game, hands down, right? You've got Bolster at 16. Even in the RVR Lakes, that Bolster is really good if you're keeping up with your items. And so when you hit Fresh 40, if your renown's not like 55 to 60, if you're not at that point, which is admittedly tough now without the scrolls, since the scrolls are no longer in, then yeah, it's a very difficult time for players for at least a few days as you're leveling up. So I think that's an interesting idea, and if it's possible to implement it, I think it's a really cool concept to pit Fresh 40s against other Fresh 40s. I think is the perfect way to do it. Put them in against people that are closer to their playing field.
Yeah. I agree with that, because I've seen that a lot in a lot of scenarios. A lot of people that have gotten frustrated they get there and they're like, I'm just getting mauled, and they lose interest and quit the game. I've had people come in to my stream chat and flat out say, dude, that, you know, I like the game, but I'm not gonna play if I'm just gonna get murdered to the point I don't even have a chance to learn anything. So yeah, I would say something implemented along those lines could be very beneficial, and it'd send a signal, you know, maybe get some of those people that left that, hey, okay, they put something in, let, you know, maybe get them to come back. But yeah, something implemented along those lines would definitely be a plus, because as you just said, Rubius, it's pretty much you hit fresh 40, you're pretty much roadkill till you get high enough to really start coming into your gear and really figuring things out.
Yeah, you're not necessarily you're totally roadkill, but it's just it's tough. It's tough. Sorry, I'll pass to the next person.
No worries. All points of view are valid here. You're never gonna hear me say, hey, no, you know, your question doesn't matter or your thought doesn't matter. I love to hear the feedback because it helps inform people, gets people talking.
I think, yeah, definitely they could be a bit dynamic. But on the other hand, I also think that we would have to think about like exactly what the conditions are. So there's no like super simple way to kind of exploit it.
It would
so
have
to speak.
to.
Because
Yeah.
I mean the XP spots, that was a bit of a problem, that you had like kind of pre-mades that were staying in the T2 and T3 scenarios using XP reduction scrolls and so on, and having like the bis gear for that tier and just demolishing in that tier. And yeah, I mean, if you have two kind of clear-cut conditions when you stay in what tier and so on, then that could happen. So I mean, but Max was mentioning that, I mean, maybe this could be a little bit dynamic based on like how many people are queuing for scenarios. Like if there's enough people queuing in T4, then some of the lowest geared players could get sent to T3 scenarios instead. Something like that, but
Yeah. I mean, anything that gets implemented is going to take a lot of careful thought, because obviously, you know, if you rush something out, there's going to be unforeseen aspects of it. So, yeah, it would definitely require some thought as to how to go about it. But I agree with what Matt said, and I agree with what the rest of you said as far as ways to, you know, see about putting something like that in, because, again, it would be beneficial. That way you don't just have high levels that are geared out already and they're just going and destroying new people. Because let's face it, if you come into this game and you're just getting stomped on repeatedly, you're gonna quit. You're not gonna. There's not gonna be any drive to do anything, because you're gonna like, well, what's the point?
On that note, shameless plug: join a guild. Find a guild. There are wonderful guilds on both Order and Destro, many of whom will teach you all sorts of things that you probably don't know as a new player, and that would be more than happy to have another insert your class here in their warbands. Right, tons of guilds like that. So, highly recommend looking for that if you are a new player.
Such as the Gym Empire. I might add.
No, you don't. You don't even need to join a guild that I know of or like. Just join any guild. It doesn't matter. Find a guild. And I think your experience in this game is like significantly improved.
That's very true.
Yeah, very much so. There's people in guilds out there for you. You just gotta reach out.
I have a question about the cities, if we have time.
Yeah, well, give me 1 second on that, because I do want to let people know I will be wrapping this up here before too long, because I do know the devs and stuff have schedules, and it is Saturday, so don't want to occupy all their time. So if the current topic was covered adequately and you guys are all in agreement there, we'll make this kind of the closing question and arguments, if that's good with everybody. Max, Dalen, Rubius?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
They're going to. Can you guys hear me? I'm having.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
hear
I
you.
was having trouble with my mic for a moment.
That's all good.
Go ahead and ask your question, and we'll go over that, and then we'll wrap things up.
Righteous. All right. The question I have is, I've played around on RoR for a while, and even when I've wanted to participate in the cities, a lot of the times that I've actually tried to get in, it ends up being full. And I was wondering if there's any possibility for the server at large to like uninstance the cities and just almost turn it into an RBR lake, because then it adds a little bit more to the faction pride. Those people who are below 40 or whatever wouldn't be able to get in at all, that they would be able to go and defend their own city or join into the assault on an enemy city.
So that's a good question, and that's something that has come up. So currently city sieges are technically scenarios. So when you queue up like a scenario and you go in like a scenario, but you just don't queue for them in the same way, and they're not open all the time. Moving all that code, it could be done. It might probably be a bit of a pain because they're kind of implemented as scenarios, or the data comes from the scenario system and things like that. And it is they are pretty much part of the original game. But I think we could do more to have the city siege experience be more part of the world. I think I mentioned this before, and it's something that I want to do personally. And what we originally had in mind at the time was to kind of, when the city siege is over, if you won, you own the city, you can go in that city and you have part of that. And then there'll maybe be after the certain amount of time there'll be a struggle to get it back, and it'll be more open world, and you can just throw in as many bodies as you can to try and recover that city. And maybe we haven't worked out the rewards or something like that, and I want to get working on that this year. At some point, there was a bit of debate whether we should focus on getting city sieges for the dwarf and greenskin cities first, or kind of implement this further with Empire Chaos, because obviously it's the cities further behind of what content they have. But we'll debate that and things.
That I would definitely look forward to either of those aspects, or even both of them. Yeah, put it into where you could actually capture the opponent's city for a little while and actually be able to go into it. Yeah, that would be fun.
Because you could kind of do that in the original cities, if I remember, a long time ago. But then you had access to their dungeons and things, and things like that. So you could do those, and we could have slightly different versions of those dungeons if you're the opposing realm. So it's not just a basic dungeon and kind of explore that way. So it's one of these things that you have to push the city, and then destroy the city, get in, you own it, then do the dungeons. And because Mythic had the cities, it was designed to take like a month to get to a city siege, right? And which sounds really rough, to be honest.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
When the first King Kill happened like 9 months after the game was released, I think. So
Yeah, that sounds right.
it took quite a while before like anyone worldwide succeeded in doing that.
There's still a video on that up on YouTube about that.
But on the other hand, that was mainly due to like the mechanism. For getting from stage 1 to stage 2 was like terrible, and you basically needed to win every instance on your entire realm. It wasn't just up to you, kind of. So
yeah.
That was really the main problem there. But yeah, I mean, once you captured the enemy city back then, at least, there was also 2 special dungeons, like 2, small 6-man mini-boss instances. In Altdorf, you could fight Gotrek and Felix, and in IC, you could fight Agod Hellbrass.
I like that idea. I mean, it would. I think that would actually be something if you had slightly different instances. So when you take, say, Destro wins and they take Altdorf, they actually get control of the city. That gives them dungeons in there to do. So there's more motivation, of that happening, and even turning it into a large lake battle. I like that idea too. Bring more people to the table. They just need to understand if you're not geared enough to be there, you're walking into a fight, you're liable to die.
Well, yeah, you're at the end tier of the game, right?
Yeah.
You can't go any higher than that.
Yeah, but I
Well-
definitely. Oh, go ahead, Max.
I was going to say this is like, I'm totally kind of off the record in a way, but like I think it would be really cool to have all the 6 cities available with the same sieging mechanic, and the real full end game is capturing all 6 and having true domination of the Warhammer.
Oh, dude,
6
if we
cities,
could,
did I hear?
yeah, if that is something that could ever happen or be made to happen, who in this channel right now, who in this chat channel, like in the stream, whatever, 6 cities. Think about it.
I think
the chaos.
Mythic, they must have originally designed for that to happen because they planned for 6 cities in the game, right? And I think if they did that, it would have been a much more interesting end game.
Absolutely. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I would love to invade the Dark Elf City. That would be cool.
Vampire.
Yeah.
One
That's
thing
that's
too.
an amazing
okay.
idea. Oh, sorry. Continue.
No, you're all good. One thing I wanted to mention that probably a lot of people that in chat have seen with cities, and maybe it's your original point, is the amount of people joining cities has obviously, it's not quite as high as it used to be when they first came out, right? When everyone wanted that sovereign gear or they were getting the royal crests back then. One thing that has changed recently, and I think for the better, is that when you're in a city siege now, even if you lose, the amount of bags that you're getting will not go down if people leave your city. So the current bag roll system typically cuts the bags in half. So like if you have 24 people and 12 of them leave, now you're only getting 6 bags, right? That was changed in the last year so that now it's always 12 bags, no matter the stage. So I would highly recommend for people playing cities, even if you don't win your first stage, stick around, keep fighting. And I think that's something that could be really good to make cities a bit more exciting and fun for the scenario versions of them, at least, that we're kind of talking about. And likewise would maybe increase the amount of pops for cities, which allows more people to get into cities if more people are queuing on both sides. So anyway, just little things that have been added in the last year that I think are good for quality of life, that help the people that are maybe losing the scenario, losing the city by a small amount, but it's still good,
Oh yeah, very very much. I'm sitting here rattling the idea around my head though with putting in with 6 cities. Think about it, gang. 6 cities to fight over. The amount of renown, the fun, the mayhem, the chaos. Warhammer.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that was classic, Todd.
That's.
Hey, I
Warhammer
used to do
4.
that when I played tournaments and stuff. If I could have got my cosplay going on, I'd have showed up in full Dowie gear. I didn't mean to cut you out. I think Dalen, go ahead.
With City Sieges, though, I think, I know some people would prefer them to be more like the Open RBR, but I know there's a lot of people that really enjoy having 24 v 24 fighting round and enjoy that scale of combat where it's not just kind of like whoever has the most numbers win, but it's also it's warband scale, but it's equal numbers on both sides, and when there's a equally matched warbands, it can be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's not so much fun when it's not equally matched warbands and one side is just stomping the other. Then that's generally not that fun for kind of either side of it.
Yeah, very true.
And I think it's a problem with the current City Siege design that, quite often you kind of know from the first engagement, at least when it's if it's fairly even, sure, then it can be worth doing more engagements and so on. But in a lot of cases, it's very clear in the first engagement that, like, yeah, one of the sides is going to win
Yeah.
every single engagement and every single stage.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a problem with the current City Siege design, that like, even if it's a complete stomp, it still takes like half an hour, 40 minutes or so on, 45 minutes even,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well,
And there's just like, I mean, if it takes 45 minutes and you know after the first 5 minutes like how it's going to end, then it's not that much fun sticking around, even if you're getting some bag rewards. And I don't know exactly how to do it, but I mean, one thought I've been, or like one idea I had, would be to switch it around after each stage and have it more like a league or something like that. So, you know, the winner of one instance would face the winner of some other instance.
I got you. So
kind
if,
of, and
yeah, that way it's not just a steady one-sided slaughter. I got you.
yeah, so then like if you lose a stage, then maybe you fight some other warband that lost their instance in the next stage or something like that. I mean, at the moment, the way it's done, it kind of carries over like how many flags you had from the first stage to second stage, second to third. So, I mean, that would have to change then, and probably a bunch of other things would have to change. I mean, they would have to be like equally long.
Yeah. Well,
the stages and so on. So there's like a bunch of open questions with that. But yeah, overall, I think that's a problem that needs some solution.
Yeah.
Well, sometime ago, real quick, sometime ago in the Return of Reckoning general chat, this question came up, and the idea was broached about, once again, inserting something unique into the city fights. It is when the cities were first introduced into the game. That was like the only place you could get the sovereign gear and sovereign crest. Now, maybe not go that hog wild, but but make something unique in doing the cities, which would encourage more people to do the cities. Has there been any other chat about that, or any thoughts on that aspect of it, please?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely something we're open to, and it feeds into our kind of idea of just being able to deliver more horizontal, cosmetics and not necessarily direct upgrades to gear. We're working on, trying to be able to put new mounts in the game and things like that. So that's more content that people can absorb that doesn't necessarily lead to a gear gap.
Well, I have a suggestion,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Okay. One thing I like about running the crypts and tunnels, and that is, you can get the unique talismans to slot into the Sentinel jewel. Now they time out, of course, but which is fine. But that's an aspect of running the crypts and tunnels that helps keep it interesting and helps keep it. People want to do it. Is the fact that you can, because there's a +6 crit chance talisman to go into my two-hand sword from my swordmaster. That's what makes it worth keep doing. Okay, so my suggestion would simply be to maybe add something like that to a city. I don't want to go overboard, but with a currency, or I don't know, you do it so many times and then you can buy a super talisman like that lasts for 20 days or 30 or whatever. Is that, again, coming from the fact that I'm not a coder, is that something that's doable without reinventing the wheel, I guess?
Yeah, that's totally. It's possible. Yeah, sure. Something like that is. And I think some of the designer guys like Rubius he's going through a lot of rewards for things, and he's modernizing them.
I mean, one of the rewards it does give at the moment, kind of in that vein, that maybe a little bit needs more, but I mean, there's a weekly quest to get 2 guild coins from winning a city as a guild group. So I mean, that's the guild coin quest that gives the most guild coins. So if you want guild mount. Yeah, winning a bunch of cities is the fastest way to get it.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep this comment on board, and try and work when we're working on our like new content plan in terms of like gear and like cosmetics that we produce. You know, if we can get something, you know, maybe that fits the bill.
I got you. All very good. All very good ideas. Solid. You know, lots been discussed. Solid ways to improve things with the community. You know, tools you can go check out. The wiki. Rubius has put forward, you know, hey, if you're wanting to learn the intricacies of getting, you know, posting information up there on the wiki, come talk to him. He'll be happy to help you. You know, obviously we could use, you know, need the help. You know, if you got useful information that you would, you know, hey, you know, found this out, or maybe it might help others, you know, hey, go to bat with it. Because you never know. It may help
Absolutely.
with other people out. Go ahead, Rubies.
No, it's just absolutely 100%.
I mean, the whole idea of it is, in general, guys, is for us to pull together as a community and encourage people to come in to want to play. You know, they see the game being streamed, or they might know a friend that plays. They come in, check it out. The idea is to be helpful to so that they know that, hey, there's information that can help me get started. They don't feel like they're coming in and just basically getting stomped with no idea of what they're doing. So, you know, hey, you know, take that first step. Extend the hand and see if what you have to bring to the table can be a benefit to someone else.
Well, I'm going to look into the advisor thing, and of course I don't know everything. I just act like I do. But you know, if I
It's the point that
but
we
if I
try.
yeah,
Yeah, even if you
Yeah.
don't know, you can point them in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say it's been a fun podcast, and I do want to thank everybody for showing up. And I guess I'm gonna kind of wrap things up here because all of us have got stuff to do. Go ahead.
We were going to give a short little update on the ability system we work, because we'll probably do a forum post on it at some point soon. But
by all means,
we're seeing the other side of it. We're having testers test things. I'll let Dalen speak a bit more about it.
Dalen, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been an ongoing work for a long time, very long actually. But so at the moment we are. I mean, the new abilities is like I guess I can give a short history update on it. Like the old ability system in the server was kind of just a custom-made ability system where we added abilities in the DD and so on, and you know, a system was created that could like handle a lot of the abilities in Warhammer Online. But back then, very little was actually known about how it actually worked on the like live servers, and the client ability data format wasn't really known either. So it was just an ability system created from scratch. But then gradually we figured out more and more about how it actually worked and what the data in the clients mean. And there's like a lot of differences in how these two ability systems work. So each time a change was made, you had to do it like both in the client and in the server ability system, and it was like different things they supported. So basically, we could only use a subset of both systems supported. And yeah, it just became very cumbersome, and there's like a lot of minor ability fixes that we can't fix in the old system. So therefore we started a rewrite from scratch that's using the data in the client instead, and we've been doing a lot of work on like figuring out what everything means exactly. And so that's it's based on the data in the patch 148 client. So it's currently without any of the like RoR ability changes, just the state that it was when the live servers shut down. Because I mean, we're doing the testing against that state because we kind of know that it's a like a known good state, and because otherwise we don't know if it's like our changes that's messing things up or if it's the system that isn't working correctly. So yeah, we're doing testing against that, and there's quite a lot of stuff working now. Some classes are probably fully working. Some classes have some abilities that aren't working correctly.
A work in progress.
Yeah, so it's still work in progress, but we're definitely seeing the light, the end of the tunnel, with like actually making at least all the player abilities work in the patch 148 state. Then we've also worked a lot on like some tooling around abilities and like an editor for it and so on. So once we have it fully working for patch 148, then we'll probably start bringing in a lot of the Return of Reckoning changes, so we can release it in a, more, whether classes are more similar to how they are currently.
I got you. So step-by-step phase, and you're trying to slowly, make corrections, and that way it's stable.
Yeah. So, I mean, we might not release it with every like identical to how it is now. That's probably it's probably gonna be like differences in how the class balance is. But once that's done, then we can start doing balancing from that point forward.
And part of that is
yeah,
because if we put it in how it was right now, we'd have to break things in some areas to make them broken how they are in Return of Reckoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, we're trying to find the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got no problem waiting. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you're taking that extra step to do it. It takes time because last thing we want is to have, well, to throw it out there, it's kind of like with the Mara's pull and stuff. We don't want more broken stuff because then it's just frustrating. So if it takes a little bit of time, so be it. I'd rather, know the fact that, hey, once it is implemented, it's working.
If it's one thing, if it's one thing I can add to that sort of issue, based on nothing more than the fact that I've been on the server steadily since 2016, with that one notable period of time that I was gone, but it's that there is a constant thread that runs throughout the history of the server, and it's and that constant thread is simply that the questions that come up, the issues that come up, do eventually get addressed. It may not happen exactly when somebody wants it to happen, but they do get addressed, right? Things have a habit of working themselves out. So I would just say again, this is based on my time on deck, as it were, that if there are people out there wondering, okay, when's this going to happen? Why isn't this happen? Why isn't that happen? Just relax, man. These guys will get around to it, right? Just relax and try to enjoy the game because these guys will get around to it. And the fact that they're here today on the podcast, I think, reinforces that point. So,
Yeah,
that's
the real killer feature that this new system for me, and I think some of the other teams, it means that previously we've had one or two people who are experienced with the system and know how to make things work. It really makes it open to anyone on the team and address issues as they come up, and it just makes it far more. In the long run, we'll be able to do stuff much easier, much quicker, and with a lot less training. Because currently, you need a special book written in some
written in my head.
Hazalid.
Sanskrit, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And it's really it's taken a long time, and it's been a bit of a rough year in terms of content. We've been using some of the stuff we've had in the sort of library in terms of like scenarios and stuff to release. But it will be. It's aiming for the long term of the game. I think we're going to be planning. I mean, there isn't an end date or a licensing agreement date that ends sort of like Mythic. So we're trying to think of the future in the long term. And once it's done, we can go back to working on all the features that everyone wants to see.
That'll be a big plus. It just takes time.
Well, guys, I gotta go. My son, who some of you know had his surgery 2 weeks ago, he's up and about and needs my help. But
No
let me
worries,
just say real
Garrus.
quick
Appreciate
that
you coming in.
well, I appreciate I appreciate Dalen and Max and Rubius coming in. It's always it's always good to talk to you guys, and
Aye.
so thanks for your time.
Well, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, you guys take care. Thanks.
Adios, Karis.
Cool. So does anyone have any questions just quickly on the ability system that we can?
Yeah, by all means, guys. If you got questions, I mean, you got Max, Dalen, and you got Rubius right here. So here's your chance to ask on the ability system. So please say so.
We will do a forum post about it sometime in the future, just to do a sort of update where we're at. Maybe a very, very rough time frame, or at least the next stages. We don't like to say this is the final date and then everyone can't sleep until that date. But also, I do want to mention that we are recruiting for people. So if you like the idea of maybe implementing some of this new state of city sieges in terms of like maybe the additional dungeons, or you want to build some quests for live events or something like that, or work on rewards for things, or if you can code, or if you're an artist, we have a forum post up in the application section which lists all these roles, and you can check them out, and you can feel free to message anyone on the team, ask about them, and feel free to write something out. And yeah.
Anyone got questions at all? Here's your chance, guys. I mean, just speak up, speak your piece.
Shot
Grenade,
grenade,
please. There's two abilities called Shock Grenade, and both of them work with the new ability system, so, as far as I'm aware.
My shot grenade is gone. I can't remove slows anymore.
As far as asking, are you nerfing white lines? That's not really an ability question, so to speak. I mean, is there a specific ability that you're asking about as pertaining to how they function, or?
Yeah. So I mean, with the initial release, we're not really. I mean, some things would work a bit differently, so it will be a little bit of a balance change, but we're not aiming it as a balance patch. That will come later.
Yeah, which will address any. We'll find out any of the results of these changes to see how much they impact balance, and then if we think, say if some of the changes made white line a bit different and a bit weaker, we would then take that into consideration. It's like that. But then we're not doing it as a design change, if that makes sense. We're not deliberately trying to nerf white line. In this current release of the ability system.
You care to elaborate on that any, Jasper? What you mean by buff the Wii?
I'm guessing that means buff Witch Elf. Is that what they're saying?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Or maybe that's
Maybe
WL for
Nintendo
white
Wii.
line.
Which Ilf?
Or white line, yeah.
Is it
Sorry.
a lowercase L? Yeah, is it white line?
It's the witch line.
Witch line. Oh no.
Oh
An
God.
unholy.
That's a scary thought.
the lion goes invisible and just appears.
No,
Your pet
no,
stealths?
no,
Oh, there
no,
we
no.
go. Max, that's
Which elf
perfect. Let's
gets
add
2
this.
lion pets?
Dual wielding lions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
as far as asking any changes to regen, is the White Lion pet AI ever gonna get fixed?
Interestingly, I found a video that was titled from 10 plus years ago, titled new like AI for white lion pets, and it was much worse than ours. But it's something. Things might change a little bit with the new ability system, with the way the pets work, and hopefully it's better. But we're always trying to increase. I think that it should work a little nicer in some ways, but the pet AI really needs another look at, and it's would be something that we would try and find time for if it's still a problem when the new ability system comes out. We don't want to say yes, it's definitely going to be fixed just because we want to see the impact of the new ability system first, and reevaluate once we know how everything's going to act.
Well, there's your answers, Far. And guys, I want to stress this out because there's already people DMing me about this. Anything that gets discussed, you have to keep in mind these guys are working on their own time, plus the fact it takes time to make changes. It's not going to happen instantly. So please don't sit here and assume, oh, they're going to do it right away. This could be something way down the road. This is a step-by-step process. It's very slow. And, you need to keep that in mind. It's not going to be instant. It's not going to be, oh, they're rolling out more content on such and such date. It's when they can get the time to get in there and do it and push it to a point to where it's working. So have some patience. The game has its little quirks. We all know this. But you just heard it from Max and the guys. They're working on it. So keep that in mind. Be patient. I know a lot of you get frustrated with waiting, but that's the reality.
And you can always join the team and help out.
Yeah.
That too. Sign up. I mean, if you're into coding, game development, stuff like that, sign up, help out. Because guess what? It'll make it a lot easier if there's more people, more hands to help out, spread out the workload.
Very true.
Go for it by all means. I wholeheartedly encourage it. I imagine Max and them would absolutely love to have a slew of more people to work on this.
Yep, Max mentioned it, but there's a number of new positions that are open on the team that he just posted. I think it was this week. They're in the patch notes for this week, so check it out. If something speaks to you, yeah.
You don't need to be a coder for some of them. There's a lot of stuff. Rubius doesn't code, and he can do a lot of stuff. We're building tools to make it a lot easier. So it's more like filling out a little Google form to do things, as opposed to having Excel open with 50 different reference sheets. But yeah, okay.
So.
I mean, we are past the 2-hour mark.
Yeah,
now.
I was trying to finish up, give people a chance to ask their questions and stuff, because Max wanted to hear people's thoughts.
Well, let's call it, and I'll if you see something posted in the YouTube comments, then yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there will always be more podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Always be more podcasts.
Oh yeah.
All right.
But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. I will have this up on YouTube just as soon as I can download it and get it up there. Again, big thank you to Max, Dalen, Rubius, Karis, Kaz. Some valid points brought up. Always a pleasure. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and raid out here momentarily, but let me go ahead and mute the Discord. And Discord is officially muted. No worries. They can't hear you. Alright. But again, thank you all, guys. Let me get a raid target set up, so don't go anywhere. I'm going to try and get you over to somebody else in the RoR community, because I do try to raid others in the community. Pay it forward. I want to thank everybody for the follows, the raids, the support. Guys, again, it's all about the community pulling together and making it happen. So, that being said, let me see who I can get you guys to. Well, there's some new people on that I don't recognize. Alright, guys, here's a question, and I'm gonna leave this up to chat. Who do we go drop a raid on? Garage Me Studios or Totem? Looks like they're a new person. What do you think? New person? I want to hear it, guys. What do you think? New person or garage there? Alright, appreciate it, guys. Okay, I'm only seeing one person. You know what? We're gonna pay it forward. Let's check out the new guy, shall we? Let's make him feel welcome. So when you get in there, smash the follow, show some support, say hello, make them feel welcome. You know, expand the RoR family. And I'll catch y'all on the next one.